Welcome to the Cognitive Crucible, produced by the Information Professionals Association. Our website is information-professionals.org, where you can find links and information about today's conversation and get access to members-only content. Join John Bicknell and explore all aspects of our generational challenge, cognitive security.
On this episode of the Cognitive Crucible, we're talking with Professor Bob Thibadeau. Bob has been affiliated with Carnegie Mellon University School of Computer Science since 1979. His expertise is in cognitive science, AI, and machine learning. Professor Thibadeau is one of the founding directors of the Robotics Institute, and he is author of the book, How to Get Your Lies Back, The Internet Court of Lies, and Fiat Lies Are Genocide on the Human Race, for which there is a brief summary available on medium.com. Professor Thibadeau, welcome to the Cognitive Crucible.
Thank you, John.
I'm hoping that you can give our audience a little bit more background about your career. You've been teaching and researching for an awfully long time.
Yep. So I've been doing. My background is actually what today is called cognitive psychology, cognitive neuroscience. And back in the 70s, it was called the Organization of Human Memory. I've been working on how the brain computes bimodally, so vision and audition and action, how all those things come together in the brain, which we know is mainly the neocortex. And I'm a student of how the neocortex computes and remembers things. So it turns out that I'm known for arguing that natural language, the language that a baby learns, is a window on the neocortex. In fact, the argument that I've made for many years is that if you want to understand how the neocortex computes, understand how natural language computes inside the brain. And you've got there, when you're watching how language comes out and how it's understood, you're actually watching the neocortex do what it does, period.
I see. Well, so can you trace a line between your expertise that you were just describing and how you came to focus on lying as an area of research?
Yeah, so this started with an interest that I've had for many years in human information privacy, which was actually started when I had a contract with the government, and was doing. We actually had the best Chinese character recognition in the world, and we were hacked. This is back in 1995, 96. And as a result of that, I volunteered to start teaching computer security in the School of Computer Science. I started back then. And it's through that I became very, very interested in being able to preserve privacy. So I'm basically a product guy. I'm not really a experimental researcher. I'm not an empiricist. I'm a theorist. And so one of the things, so I've done a number of things in the area of privacy, but as I was sort of writing a book on privacy, which is the book right before the book on lying, I came to understand the role of lying in the preservation of privacy. There's actually one chapter toward the end of the book on privacy that has to do with lying, and I swore to my wife that within the year I would write an entire book on lying. Okay.
You promised this to your wife.
Yeah, because she was watching me write the other book, and I said, and people were trying to tell me, do not talk about lying. They don't want, nobody wants to hear about it. And I said, this is like really important.
It's not big, not a big topic on the cocktail party scene.
No. So I have a argument that says basically that at least 40% of the people out there, the second you say that you're studying lying, don't want to talk to you at all. Okay. People don't like talking about lying, but I see it from a scientific point of view and understanding how the brain computes. And in terms of that, I think we can learn a lot by a scientific approach to lying. And for example, not a game theory approach, but a scientific approach as to how it's computed in the neocortex, how lying works.
Wow. Well, let's jump into your book just a little bit here. And you also have, as we mentioned at the top, a article on Medium, which is quite popular and is a synopsis, I think, of the book. But you make a bold claim that fiat lies are genocide on the human race. There's a good bit to unpack in there. Maybe can we start off with what fiat lies are and contrast them with other kinds of lies?
Yeah, fiat lies are defined as suspected lies for which dialogue is infeasible for any reason whatsoever. In other words, if you're just seeing something and you think you don't know whether it's true or not, but you could suspect it's not true. Okay, and there's no way you can talk to anybody about it because it's just there. It's there's nobody to talk to about it. Okay, or the liar won't talk to you about it, a potential liar. So fiat lies became dangerous, seriously dangerous, about 400 years ago after the occurrence of the printing press. And it actually started affecting the ability of kings to have control over their minions. So people were printing things, okay? And the things that were being printed were both truth and lies and so forth and so on, the same way that happens on the internet. Therein came the beginning of what's called the Renaissance, or the Age of Reason. And the philosopher that really started that was a guy named Rene Descartes. He's the guy who first sort of said, we've got to get at the truth. We've got to understand what the truth is. How do we understand what the truth is? And he's the one who said, I think, therefore I am, which he said, in order to understand the truth, we have to understand how the brain works. And then we can begin to understand the truth. So as a result of Descartes, he was the sort of the guy who's really arguably the guy who led the whole Age of Reason and Renaissance. The result of that was that were several things that we now know today and respect. So, for example, one of the things is out of that effort in the next 100 years after Descartes came the rules of evidence in law. So courts had to have evidence to prove the truth. Another one is scientific replication, modern science. So the idea that if you were going to argue something is true in science, other people had to be able to replicate it. And if they couldn't replicate it, it wasn't true. Okay. The other one is freedom of speech, which is journalism. The need to allow for open journalism to dialogue about what the truth is.
So it's, I want to back up for just a moment and go back to the notion of a fiat lie. Would it be fair to say that any kind of public, undisputed or public statement could be considered a fiat statement? Like, let's just say, like the Hammurabi Code or even the Ten Commandments or something like that. Those could be considered fiat statements, but a fiat lie is different in that it's suspected to be a lie.
Yeah, and what you really want, what you really need, and this really comes out of the cognitive neuroscience. What you really need is some dialogue with somebody as to whether a fiat lie is a lie, and you need to dissect it and reach agreement as to whether it might be a lie. And the dissection really is a language universal. So it's true for any natural language spoken by any human being on the face of the planet. It's just as true. A lie is a lie, and it means exactly the same thing in Chinese, in English, in Russian, and you name the language. This is a language universal, and so that dissection is what is called a folk lie. So so you can actually find literature on folk lies that do the dissection. But it's basically one way to do it is through 8 questions, which is it factually the truth? Is it the whole truth? Is it nothing but the truth? And then what's the deceit? Was the deceit intentional? What's the motivation? Is the motivation for the deceit socially acceptable or unacceptable? And then the last piece of a folk lie is there a context I can put that lie in so that it's not pernicious, it doesn't do damage to people? And so if you can do those 8 questions, you can do them for any language and any lie, then you have appropriately taken a fiat lie, a suspected lie, and turned it into a folk lie, which is a lie that everybody can sit around and enjoy the fact that they understand that it's a lie.
Right. So listeners can actually go to the internet. What you've got this project is live, right, on
Yes.
liecourt.com. Can you describe a little bit more about your ongoing project here and how people can participate if they choose?
Yeah. So one of the things that came out of the original privacy book was the decision that the internet needed a new thing. And I've been obviously involved in the internet since its very beginnings. The new thing it needed was a court of lies that tried lies and not people. So this is not a sovereign court. We don't blame any human being. We're not trying to bring fault against a person. What we're trying to do is take the things that are fiat lies and turn them into conversational or folk lies so that we can talk about them, okay, and talk openly about them.
Yeah.
Okay. And it turns out that the cognitive science says that if you put just a handful of people together and have them take a fiat lie and take it apart and figure out whether it's, what its components are, they'll generally all agree with each other. Everybody sees the same sorts of things. Okay. And that's called a court. So so you design this as a court where the lies are judged are identified by a plaintiff who says, I've got a lie here, and this is how I would fill out the verdict, answer the 8 questions. And then it's handed to a judge. The plaintiff hands it to a judge and says, can I get a judge and jury on this? The judge looks at the complaint and says, yeah, this will work as a conversation. So the judge gets a set of jurors, and he oversees a very short process, about a week long, to answer the 8, where each of the jurors answers the 8 questions as each juror has his own verdict. And then the judge creates the settlement verdict, which is the after conversation with the jurors on their verdicts and the plaintiff on his verdict, the judge provides a verdict and says, this is the settlement.
And these are all people. These
are all people.
Yep. These are not AIs.
No, these are not AIs doing anything. And then and then what we make available as a result of the court is not the settlement verdict, but all the verdicts. So you get to see the original plaintiff verdict, answer the 8 questions. Is it the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? What's the deceit? Is the deceit intended? What's the motivation? Was the motivation pernicious? And what label could we apply to make this lie less pernicious?
Okay.
And so everybody, you've got, so if you have 3 jurors and a judge and 1 plaintiff, you've got 5 verdicts sitting there that you can inspect. And that's the basis for people understanding the suspect lie in a way in which there's some dialogue that reinforces an interpretation about the lie.
Well, that's very interesting. Can you? I mean, when you're describing this, my mind goes to some other kind of fact-checking website or firm, or I don't know, there's like Snopes.com or places like this. Can you contrast this project of yours with some of those other somewhat related places on the internet?
Yeah. So most people, there's actually people are there are whole articles written on the fact that a lot of lies are factually completely true. Every word said is factually completely true. Okay. But the fact is that the whole truth was not told.
Oh,
there was something that so coming up with these off the top of my head is going to be tough, but everybody knows about these. Okay. But I could say Johnny ran into a door, and that's because he's got a bloody nose, when in fact his buddy hit him. Okay. And you could say, well, that's factually untrue. And then you could say, no, that's true. And what I said is true because there's a splinter in his nose. And you say, and then what the guy didn't tell you was his buddy pushed the door at Johnny.
I see.
So he did run into the door. It was true, but it's not exactly the whole truth. So that's a case of not the whole truth, where everything he said was true. Okay. It's still a lie. Okay.
I see. That's it doesn't meet one of the 8 criteria in the Court of Lies.
Yeah, right. And so
at least one
as a lie. And so it's a straightforward, it's a lie. Okay. And the fact checkers fact-checking companies and entities play a great role, but they are fact-checking. They are checking for factual lies, not all lies. And factual lies is a very small subset of all the lies that go on out there. So in the court of lies, you can actually bring a plaintiff case. We have examples of this where you say this is the truth, and you actually bring a Snopes or a factcheck.org article up that shows that the thing that you're saying is a lie is a lie. So the court tries all kinds of lies, including factual lies. But its function is to be scalable in a way that none of the fact-checking entities can scale. So what we do is, say we have 1 million sign-ups to the court. We can have 1 million people looking for lies to bring suits. 1 million people can be judges. 1 million people can be jurors. And in the court, everybody, all the participants are anonymous. So the plaintiff doesn't know who the judge is, and he has no choice as to who the jurors are. And so the jurors, by definition, they are classic definition of impartial jurors. You don't know who they are, what their backgrounds are, what they believe in, or anything. You just know they speak fluent English or whatever the language is that the court is going in. And they're making human judgments. And the judge is similarly somebody you don't know who's deciding whether to bring that case is going to be allowed to the court. And so in the aggregate, the result is you have a means of having an observatory on the internet for lies that are that scales to any size and any kind of lie that is out there. So you have no problem with. So there'll be some famous lies get processed by Snopes and so forth, but then there are the zillion other ones that just are falling through the cracks right now, and of course those are often the most pernicious ones. Right.
Well, so what is the final vision for this? It's you've got millions of users that are engaged and are participating in as jurors and judges, and these lies are being converted from fiat lies to folk lies, which your assertion is that's a more healthy state. But then what? You've got millions potentially, right, of these fiat lies that are being converted in this way, and then what's the utility of that?
So I'm an AI machine learning guy, right? That's my real background. Okay,
I gotcha. This is all a prelude for
this is all a prelude for it. We need to build the court of lies on a scale that we're generating data that we can feed machine learning, natural language understanding, and production systems. My argument is the only way we will ever have true conversational robots, because people lie all the time to each other, okay, is we have to be able to handle the fiat lying that's going on all the time. Okay, so in one of the fiat lies genocide paper, I mentioned that it's in the nature of the neocortex that every sentence can be a lie, and there's no such thing as a sentence that you can utter or story that you can tell or anything like that that is not going to get interpreted as a lie by somebody. Okay, there's just no way.
Right.
But so this observatory.
That's a bold statement.
And it's a provably true statement. So the book actually will prove that statement is true. Okay.
Right. That sounds kind of like you can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please everybody all the time.
Right.
It's in that there's so many different ways of experiencing the world that every utterance is bound to be to resonate as truthful to some, but for others not.
Correct. The and the reasons behind it are in that book, okay, and also in that short article.
Right.
The as an observatory, we're now able to have the first source mankind's ever had for lies that are labeled. Remember that machine learning, we need to label data.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what the Internet Court of Lies does is it uses very large numbers of people to label lies the way people see them in order to give for the first time. So if you look at training data that we have today for natural language understanding systems and automated reading of newspapers or whatever, what you see are systems that are trained on the truth. In fact, by default, nearly every natural language understanding system you see out there has been trained on Wikipedia.
Right. Yeah.
And they go for the truth. They want to train the systems on the truth. And the reason they don't train them systems on lies is they don't have the databases. They don't have the ability to have labeled data that they can use to train the natural language system on lies. And so what I'm trying to do right now is build this observatory.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the talk I gave at CMU, I was really talking to machine learning people, my friends. Through this, we can gain access to the kind of data sets we need to really be able to see if we can get machines to label fiat lies and understand the fiat lies as folk lies or conversational lies. And that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see where that would be extremely valuable. So could this type of an application be, well, I mean, please tell me what type of follow-on applications would you suspect would be valuable to our public discourse? If such a capability is up and running and has the veracity and the trust of the users and community. I mean, that's a lot of hand waving, but let's just fast forward to some applications for this.
So the applications there's a huge number of applications that we can't touch today, but we can touch once we have the. But one thing machine learning does is it can replicate what people will say. So ideally, what you'd like to have is somebody brings a plaintiff suit to the court of lies, and the court is actually running with machine learning behind it. And it says back to the person, will not only accept your suit, I will judge it and show you what the jurors will say. Okay. And so the person says, is this a lie? And the court comes back and says, yes, it is. It's exactly the way, or different than the way you say it is, or exactly the same as you say it is. And instead of coming back a week later, which is what we have to do with people, it comes back 2 microseconds later. So now you can run courts automatically on the content on the web, and you can label content on the web automatically according to what people will say about the lies. Okay. So Facebook and Google and Microsoft and all the guys who have social media type things or whatever can catch the lies automatically and get labels put on them to help bring the level of lying on the internet down to some manageable level, which is why I call the book How to Get Your Lies Back.
Wow, that's cool. I can envision some kind of a integration with a television service or a political debate, some kind of a live discussion or live event where the voice text is being analyzed in real time, and some kind of a probability of statements being truthful or fictitious, being surfaced in close to real time, which would be interesting.
Right, and in fact, what we're doing when you're getting voice to text is exactly that. It's using a statistical process. So I actually know how those programs run.
I suspected you did.
and they're using a statistical process that's based on people telling the truth. And they're they wouldn't be able to get the words right if they hadn't, but they're very bad. So if you go to something like Alexa and you say, Alexa, let's have a conversation,
mm-hmm.
You'll see state of the art for regular human conversation, and you'll see it's horrible. And the reason it's horrible is the missing part of the conversational puzzle is that people don't talk just the truth to each other, except in certain circumstances like this one, the one we're in right now. And so so sort of in the future, we can expect to up the ante on things like information manipulation across the internet, where certain parties can get access to what's really going on in other places, in other languages, and so forth and so on, in terms of how the deceits are going on. Okay. And also understanding more traditional means of deceit. Okay, as opposed to by more traditional means of deceit. There's honest, pardon the expression. There's honest war and there's dishonest war, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, what you'd like to do is bring back a day where we can have where we have some more control over the fiat lying that's going on in all the ways in which it's going on. So what this does is this provides an internet with some hopefully longer term sustainability. Retaining sort of its good aspects and helping to moderate some of its more pernicious aspects.
Wow, that's fascinating. I wish you all the best with this important project, and of course, our listeners can find links and information in the show notes to get in touch with you and learn more about how they can participate. I always want to ask our guests if there's any book or resource that our listeners can engage with that would be relevant to everything that we've been talking about. Is there anything that you like to recommend to people that would help them either understand this better or just be something interesting to read that's related?
So there's a lot. I have over 300 articles now on Medium. Okay. And they're in a magazine that's called Lie Catcher magazine.
Lie Catcher. Mm-hmm.
And that I started writing those articles in September. And what I do is I go out on Medium and I typically find somebody who's lying, okay, in some interesting way. And then I show how the Internet Court of Lies handles that particular case of lying, okay. And so I'm very, I'm basically a George Washington libertarian.
Okay.
And so I have no politics, but politicians lie a lot. And the
I've heard.
yeah, and then in medicine, there's a lot of lying, and then in self-help things and so forth, and personal advancement and so forth, there's a lot of lying that goes on. So those 300 articles, everyone's different, and everyone's sort of pointing out the different kinds of lies that people engage in. Largely, there is no formal literature on lying. The joke I have with my friends, PhD friends, is as if a graduate student comes to me and he says he wants to do his dissertation on lying. Any professor anywhere in the world will say to his students, go find another topic. That's a career ender. You'll lose your career. Okay. So I'm now 70 years old. I had my career. Okay. And now I'm doing the topic that I think it needs to be done, for which there's very little literature. There's almost no really good literature on lying. And hopefully this is some of the first.
Right. Well, we'll put a link to your lie catcher series as well in the show notes. And with that, Professor Bob Thibadeau, thank you so much for being on the Cognitive Crucible.
Okay, thank you.
The Cognitive Crucible is the only podcast dedicated to increasing interdisciplinary collaboration between information operations practitioners, scholars, and policymakers. To find out more about the Information Professionals Association, visit us at information-professionals.org. Please support our podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review.